Ladies and gentlemen, kom maar. Ladies and gentlemen, yes. All the kisses, yeah.
This is about all of us.
Welcome.
This is for all of us, by all of us. The people living in cities, citizens. You, me, them, us. We make the city, where we greet, meet, eat, fall in and out of love, work, play, pray, stay, fail, and that's all okay. That's all okay. We are one, but not the same. And that is what makes ideas, cities interesting, lively, diverse, unique. To make cities inclusive, we need all of us, for all of us, each and every one of us. If we want to make things better, it's up to us. Together we can take on the challenge to make things better, healthier, more skilled, more inclusive, circular, better connected, safer, climate-proof, sustainable, smarter, thriving, livable, vibrant, for all of us. We make the city.
Yeah, good evening all of you. Welcome to this meetup. What can Amsterdam learn from Helsinki and Helsinki learn from Amsterdam? Because we honor today our guest city who visits with the delegation our festival We Make the City Helsinki. Welcome to you all. Give them a warm welcome. Welcome Helsinki. And we're going to learn from each other, but before we're going to start and get all these beautiful visions from people from Helsinki and then some visions from the city of Amsterdam, I'm going to give the floor to Maya Abu Hana, who has initiated this fantastic meetup. Give her a big
Thank you, Natasha. Hyvää iltaa ja tervetuloa kaikki. Tervetuloa Amsterdamiin. Welcome to Amsterdam. My name is Umaya Abu Hanna, and 2 years ago, in 2017, Kone Foundation was generous in giving a year's worth of money to start a foundation called Rethink. And the first project was Rethink Amsterdam, and we rethink cities and the future of cities. And the idea is to work on different ways of thinking about inclusivity, which is also part of sustainability. It's not only about climate change. And this event and this collaboration is part of, it's the next step of that work. And we hope that this goes further and goes far away, because Helsinki and Amsterdam are very similar. They are port cities, they're on the sea. They're quite open-minded, cultures with open-minded. They're capitals that are quite hated by the rest of the areas. They're stubborn. They like equality. They're a bit different with their concept about equality. They like technology. They are different in many ways, but we could work on many things together. Really, I believe that it's not only talk. So welcome, and we hope that this is a beginning of a lovely relationship with a lot of therapy, but that will last forever.
Okay. Yeah. Maya. No, Maya. Because you were so cozying up to everybody, from Helsinki. Why?
I've lived 30 years in Helsinki.
That helps.
Yes, and now 9 years in Amsterdam. And the way I learned to be in the snow, I biked here, and I was in Finnish we say uitettu koira when I arrived. And when I arrived here, I thought I've become an Amsterdammer, when you can just come to a lovely meeting looking all wet. Yes.
No, but Maya, you actually now work at Pakhuis de Zwijger. You also create events here at We Make the City. And because of your affiliation and all your friends in Helsinki, this meetup, the delegation coming here, was happened? You are the originator of everything here tonight.
Of course, I'm the originator of the world now. Helsinki has a lot of very good, really, like an open heart and open mind. I'm serious, this is not a comment. And Amsterdam has a similar thing. And I must say that it started with Mari Vartovara, who is also, when I try to describe her to people, I said she's like a Karelian, which is very Amsterdam. Yeah. She's just like, let's do it. So we take it from there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I can do anything if they didn't arrive by themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you again. Yes. So what's the program? Very simple. Part 1, meet up people from Helsinki. Part 2, I don't know what's happening to the screen. Part 2, getting some perspectives from the side of Amsterdam. Brilliant people. So that's already. I'm looking already forward to that. And then an interaction. What can we learn from each other? Yeah. And the first, let me introduce the first speaker. She was already mentioned by Umaya. She's the director of the Helsinki Institute for Urban and Regional Studies, Mari Vartovara. Can I ask you to kickstart this meeting? Give her a warm Amsterdam welcome to the stage.
Thank you, and thank you again of all these possibilities, hospitality, the possibility really to start the dialogue between Helsinki and Amsterdam. I've been researcher 20 years, and I have to say that even based on empirical evidence, there's good reasons to start the dialogue and many things to learn from each other. And in my short 9 minutes presentation, I'll try to show few things that are so good and wonderful in our city, and then few challenges that we really are trying to understand, and hopefully throughout this dialogue able to get further. Helsinki metropolitan area as Amsterdam has been during the last 20 years one of the most rapidly growing and extremely fast changing city, as you can see. We also are very highly educated. When looking, okay, my slide went. Something has happened. This was supposed to be there, and this huge peak is Helsinki. And I was a bit trying to show that we are even more educated than Amsterdam. But something happened in the transportation of this image. But now you can read about the statistics of my university, where I come from. And the PISA results, you know that we've been very proud of having in the educational system something to look after for. When seriously compared with Amsterdam, we also had a major study led by Sako Mustad from University of Amsterdam, 5 years, trying to understand rationalities, reasons of certain cities to succeed. And out of that study, I only want to point you one particular thing, that I think that both of our cities are very qualified to enter the creative age of cities. So both of the cities have very high share of people working both in creative industries, as many of us here tonight, as well as serious knowledge-intensive industries. And now that I'm still on the positive side on Helsinki, trying to get the Amsterdam people to get interested in, you should note that we are even more creative than Amsterdam in terms of the employment of people in creative industries in Helsinki. And the third part, where I think Helsinki has something to offer, is the serious collaboration between the universities and larger and smaller companies. So we have a tradition, very low hierarchies of having collaborative projects. But I'm already adding in here that however, if we have the tradition of collaboration, we still are not, as said in the opening ceremony of this very nice event, that we are still not leading the discussion by no means. I think it was very nicely put forward, maybe by you or someone, that it's crucial to see that who are leading the discussions on future urban. And I think both of our cities, we really envy you. You are leading the discussion more than us, would have much more to offer for the dialogue on the urban futures. And actually, we haven't really been able to tackle any of the challenges that are apparent. We have very fragmented suburban structure. This is Helsinki metropolitan area. We have somewhere densities and the old, beautiful Amsterdam city center, but actually most of the people, 85% of the population, is living under very different urban or suburban characteristics. This is also our Helsinki for most of us. And what to do where and how is a major issue to discuss and debate. And I would say that the concepts or the approaches so far introduced have not provided any solutions. The other question is segregation. This is unfortunately in Finnish, but we are latecomers in the immigration. And even if we also are one of the welfare states, we haven't been able to tackle the question of immigration on neighborhood level. So you can clearly see that we used to have very small differences between different kids from different language or ethnic backgrounds. And based on different neighborhoods, the shares or the developments of different neighborhoods in terms of immigration has quickly followed maybe the European model. And finally, a third question relates to increasing inequality. This is just a chart from a research that we did, school health promotion survey. We send a questionnaire to all the kids in the Helsinki metropolitan area, asking loads of issues, and just taking one, smoking. The inequality, there are schools where 3% of the kids are smoking, and then there are schools where over 30% of the kids are smoking. And we know all the causalities related to this theme. So I think also the question of inequality still remains to be discussed. What we've tried, and we are here as a group of people from Urban Academy, we started a strategic partnership between two of the major universities of the country, Helsinki University and Aalto University, and we have the cities of the metropolitan region joining us. And actually the leaders of these partnerships, of this partnership, are now the rectors and the mayors of the region. So I think they've expressed their willingness to continue the dialogue and seriously trying to tackle these problems. And from our perspective, what I really, really envy from Amsterdam is your way of having a dialogue. I have to say that after 20 so years being in urban research, urban discussions, I haven't had the chance to have so warm-hearted, hard, controversial, as Egbert was saying, dialogue on these themes. And for that reason, I think from the whole Helsinki delegation, I'm very thankful of being here too and giving this starting speech. Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny that everybody is always saying that, but that the dialogue here is different. But you can do. You are an example of how you do it. So very good. Let's go to the second perspective from Finland. He is the rector at the Diakonia in Helsinki, Tapio Kujala. Please give him a warm welcome to the stage, please. You want to sit there? Want to stand here? Okay.
Okay. Is this working? Yes, it's working. In the beginning, I had to warning you that I had been in the Middle East many times with Umaja also, but myself and I did my PhD there about media warfare between Israel and Palestine. So I'm expert with manipulation and propaganda. So be carefully. It's your responsibility what you hear and what you saw. So my thesis is here, but before I start, I have to say some word about how do you pronounce that, Diakonia University of Applied Science. We are actually most popular Diakonia University Applied Science in Finland, and only one actually, two. But why are we so popular is that our students actually, when they come to our house to study, we put them to do some very practical things. They have to build better world. They have to solving problems. And our expertise are the social inclusion, promotion, multiculturalism, smart health and social service, religions in communities. And my point of view is not only in the capital area, because we have a campus all over in Finland. And we have to work with those other people who lives in outside of the capital, those racist and nationalist people also, unfortunately. Okay, but back to my thesis, happiest country in the world. Since you and other people, the foreigners here, you don't understand, but here is our president and prime minister and leader of the opposition party. And as I say, Finland is the most happiest country in the world. And most equal also, as you see. But I'm sure that you want to hear what is the behind of this miracle. And so we have to watch a little bit deeper. And this is picture where I'm very proud of, because I draw myself, and I recognize that maybe in the future I will be Picasso or some architect, maybe in Amsterdam or some other places. I'm not sure is the Holland just like that. Finland is a little bit tiny, but however, this picture is here that you understand the differences between Finland and Holland. Your population is 17 million people, and we have 5.5 million people, and we are larger, about 5 times or 6 times maybe, I don't know exactly. And it means that we don't see very often each other. Only when we come to Amsterdam to this kind of conference, we will see a lot of Finnish people. And then that problem what we have is the minorities in Finland, because this is something very different also. We have Swedish-speaking population about 300,000, and we are very happy with them because they have all money in Finland. Then we have a Sami people. We took their land in north part of Finland, so we are very proud of that too. And then we have a Roma people. We have about 10,000. Actually, the same number in Sami people. There is 10,000 and 10,000 Roma people in Finland. And then we have people from the foreigner people, immigrants, refugees, but some Holland, somebody come from Holland or England. Maybe I heard sometimes somebody come from Sweden also, but I'm not sure. And then some Russian people, and today I read in our newspaper that we have those kind of people about 400,000 in Finland nowadays. So we have some minorities in Finland. And what we think about in DIAC, we think about could we do something with those minorities? And we think about, first of all, Roma people, because they are only 10,000 people in Finland. And we built a campaign with the main idea that if the Roma people, more than half of Roma people job seeker reporting face discrimination during the process, and more than half of Romas are unemployment, and most of them, they don't necessarily study at all. So we start Työnimi campaign, and actually it was quite successful during the project, and I don't have numbers from the last year, but during the project we reached over 3,000 Roma people and help 165 back to working life and 131 finding studies in different level, also in the university. And it was something very nice and very important. And actually, if I think about this project, we have a similar problem with immigrants and refugee people in Finland. If your name is Muhammad or Ahmad, it's very difficult for you to find some job, even if you are a doctor or engineer background, but still you have a big problem. Yeah, I know that. So that was the results. And I forgot one thing. I have to say that these 4 people are media persons in Finland, most famous media persons in Finland. So they did a CV and sent those CVs at the working life. They use Roma names, not own names, but Roma people names. And if we have time, 1 minute 30 seconds, I show the video if it works. We don't have a time. Okay. Okay. Look that videos, because what is the funny thing during this project? We got about 30 million contacts during this project. During this, yeah, I know. I don't show you.
So we have to do something technical to get that started, but let's
yeah.
Let's look at the clip.
So 30 million contact, and what we learn about that process is well.
It's not possible, I hear.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay, so everybody has to look it up online.
Yeah, I understood that.
Okay.
But what we learned during that project, it was very nice for us that we get so much publication in the radio, TV, social media, and all the medias. But I'm not sure did we change that attitude what we have in Finland. And that's the reason we start a new project. And they are here.
Nice. Effective campaign, 30% of the group, and of that, again, 10%. Yeah. Very good. Thank you so much for your story. Let's go to the third perspective from Finland. I actually really like it because I'm like, wow. She's producer, former director at the Institute Finlandia's Paris, and she's going to tell us some lessons from Paris. Give her a warm welcome, Meena Kaunisto. Do I pronounce it? Kaunisto. The pronunciation should be on the first, yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I was giving the
mic.
Task to tell some lessons from my Paris years. I'm from Helsinki, a small city from in northern Europe, and I worked as a director of the Finnish Institute in Paris for 6 years, last 6 years. And some lessons that I learned from there. You all know Paris. It's the city of light and love and strikes, demonstrations, arrogant people, good wine, lovely cheese. And what it also is to me, at least, is it really is a city where people still, not only Louis XIV or Marie Antoinette, they still know how to think big. and that is something that I'm really admiring. It's of course a 10 times bigger city than what Helsinki is, but they do think very big. For example, they have started a project turning a third of its green space into urban farms, which is a pretty big project for an old city like Paris. And it's working. It's making the city greener and greener. They also know how to work with the international projects so that they are not only bilateral. We are very often in Finland, we have a tradition to work from 2 to 2, from Paris to Helsinki, from Brussels to Helsinki, but they know how to make big projects with multilateral companions. I also admire that. They also know how to use soft power. I think it is among the 3 biggest, if not the biggest. France is the biggest in soft power in the world. Did you know that, for example, this Centre Pompidou that I showed, it is the most visited building in Europe and attracts more than 7 million visitors every year, more than Louvre and Eiffel Tower combined. That's a lot, and that is, of course, only one of them. Here you see bikes in Helsinki. They are the city bikes that the whole system were bought from Paris. A lovely system. I hope that also the infrastructure in Finland would get a little bit better than it is at the moment. In Paris, they know how to use one-way streets on the wrong direction and many other structural things from Paris. They are at the moment having a project that is banning both diesel and gas cars by 2040, which is also a pretty big project. Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, turned these banks of Seine, the river banks, into public space. Not without people against, and I guess it's still going on, but they are now in use. They are having also, this is called the Plage de Barry. They put tons and tons of sand to the banks of Seine every year. Big, enormous, wonderful projects for citizens. And in my mind, they also know how to empower others. That was also absolutely one of the things that I learned in Paris. It's lovely. I think we have still things to learn from them. And last but not the least, they have a lot of cross-disciplinary practices. They know how to combine crazy things, and they know how to cook and live without fear. Voila.
That's sweet. What does a director of a Finnish institute in Paris do?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What do you do if you're a director of a Finnish institute in Paris?
We do cultural projects in Paris. And we did it with friends from here. We did it from Amsterdam, from other cities in Europe, and we also do them with friends from Africa, and different kind of projects.
Okay, thank you so much. And then the last perspective from Finland. Alexi Malmberg, Chair of the Helsinki Cultural Vision 2030. May I give you the floor? Give him a warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you, thank you. Very happy to be here. Good evening, everybody. I thought I'll be on this side, so you don't have to choose between looking at me and the pictures, but you get the both. I'm sorry about that. Indeed, I'm general manager for the Helsinki Philharmonic Orchestra, and now working together with a group of other people on the City of Helsinki Art and Culture Vision for 2030. And before that, I was living in Brussels with my family, working for the Finnish Cultural Institute, and Mena asked me to share some experiences on what can we learn from Brussels. And on those discussions with the Cultural Vision, actually, one of those dichotomies that we found really inspiring was the one of nature and culture. Sort of going to the, sorry. So on the nature and culture, which is very important in Helsinki in a way that if you go to Töölönlahti, which is in the very heart of the Helsinki, it's the core, and then it's a park from which a bridge goes to the central park, which is called a park, but actually it's a forest. And from that forest you can walk through the woods actually up until the Arctic Sea. So the connection to the woods and forests is somehow very crucial there. And meanwhile in Brussels, somehow this, together with the dichotomy of nature and culture, and in parallel is the dichotomy of organized and the unpredicted, or the harmony and the chaos. And I love Brussels. It's one of the most beautiful cities, together with Amsterdam. It's one of the most international cities. It's 71% of citizens of Brussels have actually roots abroad. 166 different nationalities living there. It's while being beautiful and international, it's a mess in many ways. It's not one city, it's 12 cities, which each of them has one school environment, each of them has their own police department, and they sometimes talk to one another. It's one of the most traffic polluted cities in the world. An average car owner in Brussels spends 195 hours a year staying stuck in a traffic jam, not moving anywhere. So that's like 5 weeks of work being in a car alone. So there's some challenges in the urban design, but at the same time it's amazing. Those challenges have led to a situation where, when you go around the corner, you never know what's there. It could be a beautiful horta, a sort of architectural gem, or it could be a 1970s abandoned warehouse. My first experience in Brussels was in 2014. I took a part in the Kunstenfestival des Arts, an arts festival, in one of those abandoned warehouses. And the performance started in a way that the artist, she took a big pile of earth, on the ground, and the audience sort of went around the dirt. And then she put an explosive inside and exploded all of that dirt on us. And that was just the beginning. And somehow I learned in Brussels that the rules that are somehow very self-evident for a Finnish person do not always apply. Helsinki, in its, I think, rather good current strategy, states that it wants to be the most functional city in the world, which is not too far away. It's a good goal. It needs that we know how to make things work, even in the minus 20 degrees. The ferries are going to the archipelago. The airplanes are flying. People can swim. But what I learned in Brussels was the power of temporality, of finding an ad hoc solution. This was the swimming pool of Brussels city, built there by a cultural institute in 2016. and it was the only place to swim outside in the city of Brussels. But it was, you know, and there was a good, really nice atmosphere, and people enjoying themselves and laughing, and you know, and it worked. So that's good. Another example of this kind of power of temporality that I learned, this is an example of a Finnish Helsinki, really nice cultural center in the suburbs, really good content, quality content inside. And its counterpartner in Brussels, Recyclaar, is actually, during daytime, it's a train station, a suburban train station. But when the night comes and the trains stop, so it becomes a cultural center. And I've experienced some of the really most powerful poetry nights, music gigs in Recyclaar. Now, I'm not idealizing this ad hoc sort of chaos kind of approach. In every metropolitan, there's big problems, sort of dark places, melancholy, tragedies. The terrorist attacks in Brussels was only a sort of a peak of a mountain, telling about something that's more profoundly wrong, and it's too complex an issue to really say sort of whom to blame, where are the solutions. We can't figure that out directly. But I do claim that one of those things behind those problems is the question of belonging and the question of fairness, identity, but most of all belonging. And for me, having worked in the cultural and artistic field for whole of my life, I think building an identity and building a sense of belonging, art or music or poetry, can be really a powerful experience. It can be a playground for ideas, for identities. It can be a safe place to discuss or experience things that are not safe. And even in the most functional city, I think that there needs to be a place for chaos, and a sort of a safe, good place for that could be the art and culture. What else I really I knew from before, but I learned in Brussels, was that Finland is an island. Not only geographically, but also in the sort of the mental approach of us. And this is one, you know, a friend of mine took this photo a couple of years ago. This is, for the ones, the Finns know, but for the ones who are not, what's happening here is this is a very normal Finnish Juhannus, midsummer day. And people are waiting for the bus, and this is the bus station. But because the main aim for a Finnish person in life is to avoid speaking to other people, also known as strangers. So they end up sort of in this really nice form. And this is something that, you know, I learned from Brussels, and perhaps we can work on that. Getting back to the nature culture division, the one place in Finland where those meet is sauna. That's why sauna exists. It combines the two. And that's something that we can give also. This was a project that we did. It's a social sculpture, a fire truck turned into a wood-burning traditional sauna, and we parked it just in front of the European Parliament, in the main entrance basically, and invited the parliamentarians and the citizens and everyone to join in the sauna and sweat for Europe, and, you know, to chat and discuss. And through that experience, I felt that the sort of the Helsinki spirit can have something to offer more broadly. I want to end by an ode to libraries, just because that's something that, politely said, Brussels could still develop even further. But this is the new central library in Helsinki, of which we are very proud of. Helsinki has 37 libraries plus two library buses. And it really shows the question of structure or organization meeting the unpredicted. every book has its place. You know, you directly find what you need. But then when you open the books, inside there are thousands of different worlds, thousands of stories, you know, tragedies, happy things, poems, and that's sort of structure meeting the unknown is, for me, what is a good city about. Thank you so much.
I mean, if that sauna bus can stand here in front of, I will be volunteering to host that meeting. I'd love to. Having a heated conversation. Sweating conversation. It would be really nice. Yeah. Thank you so much, beautiful representatives of the delegation of Helsinki, for your perspective. It's now okay. Before I'm going to turn to the part where Amsterdam people are telling their stories, or I'm going to interview them. They can choose. Let me see if there's anybody who has any question on what was just presented by the four representatives of, or comments, or things you want to emphasize or add. No? There was a lot of mumbling in the finish. Yeah, that's how we stand at the bus stand. I mean, you recognized a lot, right? I mean, in the typologies which were presented. Yeah, good. Let's go to the Amsterdam perspective. And the first I would like to ask to present is Sef Hemel. He's now the special advisor to the mayor of Amsterdam. That's what everybody now says in newspapers. But actually, he is a professor of urban planning or urban strategies, urban development. But now you're also the special advisor to the mayor of Amsterdam. And we're going to talk about cities under pressure, the solution for the mayor has asked him to come up with a plan for the historic city center of Amsterdam. Give him a warm welcome to the stage. Sef Hemel.
I make use of this.
Yes.
Well, actually, it was the mayor who asked me this January to produce a long-term vision for the Amsterdam historic city. So this is Mrs. Halsema. Oh, yeah, I've got the same problem. Like you. Sorry? Okay.
You can speak.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You're right. So, why? It's because of this area. Maybe you already have visited. It's the red light district. There the problems all started. And we still don't know exactly what the problems are, but there are many, I can assure you. And it has become a very touristic place, very, very. But it's also the place of sex, drugs, and crime. So, and it's not only this area anymore. There's something happening in this whole historic city. So, what can we do? So I'll tell you what I'm doing at this very moment, because we are not yet there, but I started after the 11th of January, and I work like a kind of detective to find out what the problems are, who are the victims, and who are the and who are guilty. Well, not really, of course. So what I'm doing now is stepping in an unknown world, and I'm trying to unmask things, and I get embroiled in a plot. And as a planner, I'm reconstructing the past, and trying to open the way to the future. That's what I'm doing, and I'm looking for details. So what is really the matter? And what I work with, the knowledge I work with, I call metis. So it's a kind of very practical, common sense, like kind of what I work with is a very rich material, a kind of accumulation of many partly redundant signals. That's what I try to listen to. And yes, this last one, a kind of prudence I need. So what I'm actually doing is this knowledge is a kind of collective knowledge I'm after. So I need a diverse crowd in this historic city. I need independence, so I don't want have any consensus. I need all the opinions and all the experiences of people, and I do it as decentralized as possible. And this element of redundancy is crucial. So already Jane Jacobs wrote about it, that you need all those unique people in your city and to study their life stories, and then you can find some elements of this vision. So here I started 1 month ago in this medieval church, this Gothic church. It's the oldest building of this city, dating from 1306. And it is in the middle of the red light district. And I stayed there 1 month. I lived there and I worked there, and to meet as many people as possible. And they gave me this chapel, this St. Sebastian chapel, and I could use it 1 month long. And we made an environment of it. So we changed the whole atmosphere of this chapel with the help of artists. And these are maps, but you have to read them closely. So I created a kind of environment where we could meet. These were all maps, but maps you really have to study carefully because they tell different kind of stories. And then they also gave me this little house in front of. It's a 17th century house. It's 2 meters deep. And there I could have all my talks. So there I am. This was my kitchen. And this is from my living room, looking into my kitchen. This was my window, and I could see everything in the streets, what was happening from the early morning until late night, and even in after midnight. I had 80 talks, so I spoke to 80 people, and every talk was 1.5 hours long. That gives people the time to tell their life stories. And it was very personal. Everything was very intimate, and I needed all those sentiments, and so it should not be objective, not at all. On the contrary, so people were telling not just what they were doing, but also how they are living their private lives. In order for me to understand what is really happening in the city. And next to that, all the evenings, well, I had 12 evenings in this 1 month with a kind of public program. It was for free, everybody could come there. And I had all those different subjects. And for every night I had 2 speakers. But it was, in fact, a kind of conversation, and it looked like this. In the chapel, in the church, people seeing each other, speaking to each other, not like an audience, but everybody was involved. And me as a moderator, I could see everybody in the face. So everything I did was having really contact with people, really try to understand, to listen to them. For me, it was an exercise in listening 1 month long. And from this not knowing, so with a 100% open mind, I had no opinion, I had no expertise, and people shared their beliefs, opinions, ideas, dreams with me. It looked like this. And people were all discussing those things and telling me and giving me feedback. I got a huge amount of feedback from people. And for me, it was writing everything down. That's what I did, right? So this was the art of moderating. All the invitations were open. Open questions, listening with an open mind. Everybody should be able to speak. If not, that's all right. And of course, time is limited. I try to not have this downloading, this talking nice, this kind of amusement, being an audience, but and also not the debating, because debating, it goes too slow. It's not really about learning. So I try to reach a level of dialogue, this inquiring and this empathic listening. And even the presensing I try to reach. So, after listening to those hundreds of citizens and hearing about their lives, now I can work on a kind of narrative about the future. And this is one quote from James Throckmorton from Chicago, I like very much. Planning is a constituting form of storytelling on the future that convinces people. It's like that, yeah. So it's constituting, it's not just storytelling, but by telling those stories, people change their behavior. So plans are just linguistic objects with a specific idiom, and of course with a consistency and a chronology. And it should be, of course, appealing to as many people as possible, but it should also have an open character and giving rise to conversations. So I give you one example of this. This man stayed 4 months in the red light district, just a few months before me. And he was quoted in the newspapers that the red light district is a jungle, right? A lawless jungle. And the reaction, the feedback he got was really, people started thinking that it really was a jungle, you know? So language is very powerful, and using those metaphors forces you to react in a very special way. So the mayor was almost annoyed by this lawless jungle quote. And also the turmoil in the city only grew after this one. Or this is another one. So the historic city of Amsterdam is a kind of Disneyland. Lots of people are using this. Yeah. Once you start thinking that it is a Disneyland, you see all the kinds of phenomena, and you start thinking it really is a Disneyland. And then you will behave, you start, well, your policies will be influenced, everything. So what I'm now trying to find is a more positive metaphors people gave me, people really believe in, because they live totally different life. It is not Disneyland. It is not a jungle. It really is something different, right? So that is what I tried to find out over the last month. And I was really impressed by people. So how brave they are, what they know, it's so impressive to find all this, that you really are proud of this beautiful city. So, and this is the last part. This Monday, we left the chapel and with all our maps, and we bring them, my students help me, we bring them to City Hall. That's what we did this morning. to the room of the mayor, and this was a great walk through red light district, you see. And it was really, again, moving. You also need those rituals in order really to find out what your city really is like and what it could be. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I'm curious to talk to you about the art of moderation. Yes, let's change the program a little bit. Shall we first do Ton Venhoeven and then Ger Baron, because he just walked in and he can get acquainted with the topic. Yeah. So I would like, if it's okay with Ton, now give you the floor. You were actually asked today, I think, to come in, a very famous architect from the Netherlands. And the only thing I have to do if I'm in this room is to say, look outside and look at this bridge, because he made it, he designed it. And it's always fun to have you in this room, because then I think of that, but you do many projects all over the world. And you were asked to come in and join us. Worked in Helsinki a long time ago?
I have a lot of friends there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. And do you want to make a presentation or do you want to have an interview? What would you like?
An interview.
Yeah, go. Sit down. Give him a very big welcome to the stage, Ton Venhoeven. Yeah. Yeah, because you have an architecture firm on architecture and urbanism. And we are now, this evening is an evening where we learn from each other, right? And if I would ask you to look with your professional eye to the development of this urban area called Amsterdam, what would your how would you characterize that?
Wow. Well, I went a lot to Helsinki, and I see in the Netherlands a very comparable phenomenon with Helsinki. What struck me in Finland is that basically the country is emptying towards Helsinki.
Yes,
and,
because 5 million people in Finland, 1 million almost in the area of Helsinki. Yeah, yeah, yes,
yeah. And a good friend of mine, two friends of mine, Hennu Kisik and Trevor Harris, they are urban planners in Helsinki, so we talked a lot about what's going on there. I gave a couple of lectures at Aalto University, and actually I'm very impressed about what your city is doing. So I think we can learn a lot from you. There are a couple of things which I think are very interesting, is that you have a very clear analysis of the suburban situation and the growth of the city. You have a very clear policy on how to transform a car-oriented society to public transport and mobility as a service society. And you have very clear steps. What I think is also interesting is how you recovered from the Nokia debacle. And
everybody's yeah. I see all the Finnish people in the room go, yeah.
And
what is so interesting about that? How they overcome this Nokia?
Well, there is a huge power, and you see it also in the figures, that the education level is very big, very high. But also there is a very strong organization where companies and universities work together. So if a company like Nokia breaks up, then immediately you have like it's like a spreading wealth of development and innovation.
Yeah, it's almost the proof of the notion of creative destruction.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm actually a bit jealous when I compare the metropolitan region of Amsterdam with Helsinki, and you see something comparable in Copenhagen and Denmark.
Okay, so I ask you to characterize Amsterdam, and you start by applauding Helsinki, which is amazing. But does it mean that what you like about Helsinki is what you are worried about in Amsterdam. So that is a clear vision on urbanism, a lack of a vision for car-free mass mobility as a service strategy, and a good plan for that, and a good cooperation between academics and cooperation in creative. If creative destruction happens, then you have a vision.
If I would compare the two cities, to the two metropolitan areas, I think the Netherlands, Amsterdam region is very strong in decentralized action.
Oh.
So nobody is obedient, and there are so many initiatives, and also the city takes care that all of these initiatives are cherished and give plenty room to develop. And what I really like is that the Helsinki region is almost the opposite. It's like the policy and policy making and implementation of policy is highly efficient. And I think, for example, I focus in my urban planning, but also in architecture, a lot on transit-oriented development. And I think it's very influential what you are doing with mobility as a service. Worldwide, it's a leading program, and I think also a lot of Dutch policymakers are now looking at mobility as a service. I think I hope that this collaboration between Helsinki and Amsterdam will bring a bit of chaos to Helsinki and a bit of organization to Amsterdam.
Oh, that's it.
So
that's nice. Thank you so much for that perspective. Okay, but you do many projects also here in Amsterdam, right? But in the entire Netherlands. You say let's have a bit of a more structured plan in Amsterdam. Is that on? For instance, on how we deal with mobility? Is that a...
Yeah, I think what I try to start telling is that Copenhagen and Denmark are very strong. The city of Copenhagen is very strong because it's also the capital, and there is a large concentration of power.
Yeah.
Which means that if you have a policy, you can also implement that. And I see the same in Helsinki and Finland. That this concentration of power is very beneficial if you want to change the metropolitan region.
Yeah.
And here in the Netherlands, Amsterdam metropolitan region, I think what I see is that the city of Amsterdam, when we look at the figures, you constantly have to ask, is this the municipality of Amsterdam or is it the metropolitan region?
Yeah, because there are 26, how many municipalities are in the metropolitan region? 33 municipalities, 2 provinces. Yes.
Yeah, and it's 2.5 million people, but Amsterdam itself only has like 850,000. So it's
1/3 of the inhabitants.
You have to think, and if Amsterdam wants something, then the rest of the country, like in Finland, says, "Oh, we don't want that."
No, if Amsterdam wants something, we don't want it.
Yeah, but the difference between Helsinki, Finland, and Amsterdam, Netherlands, is that the power of the Netherlands is concentrated in The Hague. So that's really an obstacle to efficient policy making. On the other hand, this very decentralized, boiling pot of knowledge, which Amsterdam is, with the universities, with all these highly educated people, with all this disobedience, creates an enormous amount of innovation.
Yeah.
And this is something, it takes a little bit a longer way because we have to go through The Hague in the end. But I think Amsterdam, when we look 10 years ahead and we look back on this time, we might say that, well, that's where it all started because that was the revolutionary period where so many ideas were developed. But to actually execute them, we might look a lot more to cities like Helsinki and Copenhagen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for now for this perspective, and we'll have to come when we have the dialogue. We'll come back to you. Thank you so much. Tom Venneman. So this morning I heard that somebody said, okay, so it's so great in Amsterdam that people work together from the the societal organizations and the government, and that they have their peers and they understand each other's language. So let's see if that's true. So I'm going to invite Ger Baron, who is the Chief Technology Officer of the City of Amsterdam, to join me. Give him a welcome. You can join me. But I'm also I'm going to invite his counterpart. Oh, she left. Your counterpart left. Your civil society counterpart. I saw her sitting, but she now left. Marleen Sticker from the Waag, but she's just gone. Ger, now I have to do it with you alone.
In a debate with her, so
yeah, I know, but it's funny because she said that one of the unique things she now learned in WeMakeThe.City is that it's quite unique that you are so much in conversation with each other as a civil organization.
So I can act like her if you want to.
Yeah, so you have to do both roles now.
I can do that.
So this meetup is to, Ton really said it well. I mean, what can we learn from each other? He says a bit more chaos and a bit more policy effectiveness. That's what we can learn from each other. If I would ask you, what is Amsterdam doing now, cutting edge in your department, in the Chief Technology Office? What really should be told to our crowd from Helsinki?
Well, maybe I would say we managed to go from a technology discussion in terms of architectural designs and types of software and procurement from technology, etc. We went to value-based policy, basically. Well, we said everything we do with technology should be open, should be transparent. People should be allowed in Amsterdam to walk around freely, not only in the physical domain, but also in the digital domain. And we need to make sure this is organized, basically. This is right, this framework should be in place before we, start to leverage creativity and find solutions, etc., etc. Closer to the microphone, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I just start again. Now, so we went to a value-based way of looking at cities.
Yes.
Where we said actually it's about inclusivity, it's about freedom in terms of people should be allowed to walk freely to the city without people stealing physical stuff for them, but also stealing their data, etc.
Yes.
And once you manage to get that in place, I mean, you can, do everything what you do with creativity.
So from the tech focus to the ethical, societal focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And once you manage to nail that, you can go to build solutions and solve problems, etc. But the starting point should be everything you do in your design should be, designed well. You should have design principles. Because, when you look at, we can learn quite a bit from former industrial revolutions, basically a digital revolution right now, but the former industrial revolutions has given us fossil fuels, cars, etc. Maybe a few design mistakes doing all these things. And to get rid of fossil fuels, to get rid of 2,000 kilo cars delivering a pizza, it's more complicated than designing it, starting with it basically. So we need to make a few decisions in the digital age that are the right decisions, making sure the collateral damage won't be bigger than solving the problem.
And are you succeeding in that?
Well, yes and no. Not always, but I think we're making nice steps in that perspective. We're have this policy in place. We talk to all the big tech companies around the world nowadays and make them work with us to a certain extent, opening up what they do in Amsterdam, opening up the data, what are you collecting. We're defining human rights, and obviously there's still a long way to go. We just started to assess our own algorithms and see, hey, actually, is it honest? Is the technology we use honest? Do we...
Is our technology we use in Amsterdam honest?
Well, mostly, but not always. Yeah, so when you put in data and you put in a bit of machine learning, you probably get a bias. And this is actually the first time we realized that. And obviously you have human biases before, but when the bias is in the technology, the impact is 10, 20, 30 times bigger.
Yeah. So have you ever been to Helsinki?
Yeah, I've been to Helsinki, I think 10, 15 times, yeah.
15 times to Helsinki?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. It's 1.5 hour flight, 2 hour flight. Oh, I like it to be dark and cold. No, but it's and vodka, no. But it's, actually, Helsinki is one of the most advanced cities when it comes to, I would say, public-private partnerships and technology. And the interesting thing, in Helsinki, their public sector is quite powerful in Helsinki. The city of Helsinki has like 50, 60,000 people working for them, etc. Which is
okay. Amsterdam has 15,000 on the payroll and 4,000 in the flexible contract.
Yeah,
19,000 in total. Okay.
And 22,000
38,000. So, okay, so
a lot
it's
of
double.
people, more than we have.
No, but it's double.
I mean,
So it's nice to know. It's nice to
And the
realize.
interesting thing is they still do their own energy, etc., etc. So the interesting thing is, I mean, it's state of a local owned. So in a lot of ways, I mean, we're a bit later with privatizing everything like we did, and now we're in Amsterdam. Sometimes we're a bit. Well, I would say we made a few mistakes in privatizing stuff, so because we're out of control, etc. So I mean, in a certain extent, we can learn quite a few things from how to organize stuff in a public way, involving citizens, have democracy playing a role in it. I mean, when we talk about our energy company, we use all types of algorithms to decide on the energy grid, making decisions who to cut off, where and when, whatever. Who decides on the algorithms? I mean, now the energy company does it democratically chosen. The citizens are involved in it. So a lot of infrastructure. So we can learn quite a few things on how they make decisions and stuff.
So, and then you go to Helsinki to learn from them?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And so you say that if we would buy back our energy infrastructure.
No, we shouldn't buy it back. We now should do it differently.
Okay.
I mean, and that's a tremendous challenge we are with. I mean, the opportunity we have right now in the digital age that we can redesign stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I consider my job not to be a technologist or whatever. I mean, consider my job to design a city and a city government in the digital age. I mean, do we still need? I mean, actually, I want to get rid of the word government because I mean, it's like civil servants. Everybody thinks about bankers in banking, basically. You don't want to have bankers. You want to have an organization that manages your money fairly. So banking as everybody has an opinion about it.
You want to get rid of government?
Yeah, a different name. We need a different name. We need a new narrative.
Language.
Yeah. Public service should be back into a certain extent. I mean, we're public servants. I mean, that's a nice word, but government is an institute. We should get rid of the institute, design a new institute that fits the digital age with digital competences, new rules and regulations. Because, I mean, what we do right now is more of what we've already been doing for the last times. I mean, government has been growing from 10% GDP to 50% GDPs in the last century. I mean, we're just making it bigger and do more, but we forgot that we should get rid of stuff and redesign stuff, basically. So it's a design question.
Okay. I'm now what I know Indy was telling in the opening session, of course, where some of you were there. We need new institutions, and I'm like, imagine new institutions because the institutions we created. But then he's also talking about private institutions, right?
Yeah,
like the limited.
I mean, we invented a whole bunch of stuff during the industrial revolutions. I mean, energy companies, waste companies. I need to do the mic more like this. I could do better like this. Or to get different microphones, but I mean, but it's we invented a whole bunch of stuff, and we in energy companies, waste companies, water companies. I mean, they were all started. I mean, water companies, or the sewage companies in Amsterdam, water companies were a private initiative at first, and then the city took it over. Said, hey, this should be for everybody, etc. It's not cherry picking. Everybody should have this facility. I mean, for data probably goes the same thing. I mean, why not invent data and connectivity utilities who actually manage this for people? Based on public values and not on private values. I mean, access to the internet, managing your data. I mean, this is not a private sector thing. This is something that should be a utility, a facility.
Interesting.
So we can think of all these things, I would say. Also, I mean, you need a different type of government who understands these things. And when you don't understand it, when you go to talk to the police, I mean, and you ask them for cybersecurity, I mean, different world. I mean, only 40 cases a year or in Amsterdam or at the court on cyber, well, actually people get convicted. I mean, this is while the number of cyber attacks and cyber criminality is almost as high as physical.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. We don't understand this world yet.
Yeah, the institutions we now have in place are not fit for the challenges we have today.
Planners who tend to think we can plan 30, 40 years ahead, which is when from a software point of view, it's ridiculous. I mean, keep options open. It's not chaos. It's just designing a city based on design principles. I mean, when you build software, you don't design a city, a website ahead 40 years from now. I mean, software is eating the world. Everything will be software.
Yeah.
Buildings, roads, everything. So when you start to think about that, I mean, it's not about urban planners thinking about 30, 40 years ahead. It's ridiculous. I mean, well, to build a bridge in 30 years. I mean, come on. How do we know? We don't know how we will be transported in 30 years. I mean, from a software point of view, this really is ridiculous.
This is going to be quite a fundamental conversation within the government of the Amsterdam, probably.
It is.
Thank you so much for this perspective now, because we just are collecting some perspectives and then we have an open floor. But thank you for now. Gerberon. Is Sjoukje already in the room? Yes. Okay. Yes. Very good. We're going to go to the fourth perspective for Amsterdam, and that is because and we were thinking when we were who are we going to get at this table that are of course a bit of let's say hoe zeg je dat special people from the government. So Seth, of course, you understand, he's doing these crazy things with walking around the streets with students and going to live in a church for a month, and then you have Gerberon who wants to just dissolve government the way it is, and of course a beautiful architect and urbanist from Amsterdam. And the fourth person is also doing something very interesting, we think, for the conversation on the comparison between Helsinki and Amsterdam, and that is because she is the head of democratic innovation and citizen participation, and the city, the aldermen and mayor have decided that they really want to do something else with democracy here. So they want democratic innovation. And let's talk with her about that. Sjoukje Alta, please join us. Ja. Ja, gaan we lekker zitten.
Could you sit on this side?
Oh,
This side. Yes.
so they can see you now, because otherwise they sit at the back. They
All the time.
Yeah. So now they see. Yeah. It's nice for you. Okay. Miss Alta, head of democratic innovation and citizen participation. What is the biggest part of your job now?
Well, this is only part of my job.
Yeah.
I'm also the director of the Eastern stadsdeel of this
Yes,
part of town.
heel dicht bij elkaar.
I should speak like this, really?
You can take it.
Oh.
You can take it like that.
Okay.
Just sit relaxed.
Yeah, I sit partly relaxed. So I combine two jobs. I'm the director of the stadsdeel Oost, which is the eastern part of the city, which has about 145,000 inhabitants. And I told the alderman that I would take this job, but only if I could combine it with the job I have in the eastern part of the city, because I believe that we need to reinvent our work as directors, as public servants, and as aldermen actually as well, and probably mayors as well, because cities are the next level of collecting problems which we can't solve anymore. We can't solve them as a public institution. So we need the wisdom of the crowd, we need people, we need smart ideas, and we need to combine these.
Yes.
And I didn't think it was a good idea to just become the innovation democratic officer if I could not combine it and show public servants that you can do your job in a different way.
Yeah. Very good. So you are a slasher now in public service.
Slasher.
Yeah, we call people who have like business cards with all these slashes on it. So I'm a designer, and I am a moderator. Everybody is I learn now that everybody on his business card said /moderator. I'm like, okay,
Cool.
I'm
a slasher.
You're
Now
a
I know.
slasher.
Yes.
Now you know.
Yeah.
And Miss Alta, and what are we doing? What is this program on democratic change in Amsterdam? Because it's a lot in the newspapers that something is going to change. But what are we going to change?
I think we are going to change the way we design, the way we deal with problems, with chances also, and the way we deal with people that live in the city, people that visit the city, and people that work in the city or create jobs in the city.
Okay. We're going to change the processes.
We're gonna, science told me I should never talk about processes anymore, so I'm...
Who is telling that you can't talk about process anymore?
We were talking with scientists about what we had written down.
Don't believe scientists.
And the scientists told me processes are words that you should never use again.
Why not?
Because it's nothing. That's what they said. And it's really our job, so it's kind of complicated at the moment.
I don't know which scientists say things, but when I studied political science, everything was an open-ended, bottom-up process approach. So,
process approach. Oh, you would die if
So
you heard
don't
that
worry.
you do this, probably. Yes.
So you're going to redesign the way we actually come to decision, the way we invite citizens to join, or what is going? Which process?
To join decision making. That's a thing. So it's not we don't want to hear more from Amsterdam people about the plans we have, because we hear all the time what people want, and people don't want to tell us anymore. They want to see that we actually do something with the information they give us and the ideas they have.
Yeah, there's a participation fatigue. People are a bit tired now.
I don't know if it's fatigue. I think it's because we are doing it the way we are doing it. We ask the wrong questions at the wrong time, and that's what fatigues people.
Yeah.
So you get tired if actually the plan is already finished, and we still have to go to the neighborhood and check if the plan's really right.
Yes.
And there's no money, there's no time, there's no planning, there's nothing they can do anymore.
Okay.
But we have to go get the stamp. And we don't want to get the stamp anymore. We want to go to neighborhoods when we think we have an issue and we might think we have a solution, or we want to co-create the solution for a problem that might be there or might not be there. And then we stop as well. We never stop as a government. We continue all the time.
Yeah.
It's a soap, actually. It's very nice to look at government as a soap. It's a good metaphor.
A soap opera, a television show where
television soap.
Yes.
Yes. Because it never stops, and there's always a cliffhanger, and there's always processes, people, and events that collect people, but there's not really anything going on.
Yeah.
Because we just live together all the time.
That's a fantastic metaphor.
Yeah. Yes, it does help me to.
So you are one of them. Do you like your role?
I
You're one of the actors
actually,
in the soap
I do.
series.
Yes.
Okay.
I do like my part.
Okay, so you said we want to do it differently. What are we going to do differently? So you said we need to involve people better at a. We have to, we wanna ask them questions or get them into the game, involve them, get their knowledge, their analysis, their stories, their heartfelt life stories
but
on the right
their
table.
Potential. Also their potential.
And their potential.
We are used to only thinking problems, or only think in let's get the voices out there and we have to be inclusive, and it's all very problematic.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's wisdom out there, and we don't use the wisdom.
Okay. And so what are we going to do?
So we are reinventing our processes, and we are going to experiment with that as much as we can.
Yes.
And one of the big things that we are really trying to do now is to get money back into neighborhoods, and to get neighborhoods really give the money to people, to the inhabitants.
They already
my
paid.
English is horrible because
listen, Jacques.
Sorry.
We paid that already. You know that the taxes we have paid that money.
Yes, but we are giving it now directly back.
The citizens, I mean, paid the money. Yeah, and you're giving
paid
it
the money,
back.
and we're giving it back, so people can really spend it the way they think their neighborhood is going to be.
Participatory budget, participatory budget schemes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you say we're gonna get them involved in just how do you want to spend the money, which is publicly reserved for this neighborhood. Make your own mind up. We're gonna do that,
and it's big money. Yeah, it's if we have now €1.5 million this year only for 3 neighborhoods. So it's 3 neighborhoods that get €500,000
to spend on their neighborhood.
Together on plans they have to improve their neighborhoods. Yes.
Nice.
And it goes to 8.5 in 2 years million.
What's the budget of the city of Amsterdam?
Oh, do you really want to know? Yeah. It's 5.2 billion.
Billion.
And I just came from another meeting.
So it's 0.1%.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. That's why I didn't want to tell it, because I'm quite ashamed of only this low percentage. And I come from this meeting where they said it has to be 2% of the budget. So we have to stretch it to 120 million.
Oh, that's great news for everybody.
Yeah, that's people. Yes, and we are working on that. Work in progress.
So okay. So it's fun. It's fun doing this because then you hear from somebody who says, "This is not sellable to the Amsterdam public. We need a much bigger figure. We want 2% of the budget."
Yes.
Okay.
And I agree.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Helsinki?
No, I would love to, though.
Yes. Because we heard now from, you weren't here yet, but they told us stories about what's happening in Helsinki. And it was interesting to hear what they are doing because they're doing so well. They are the most happy people in the world. They have a very high educational, they have many people who are in higher education. They are very organized and they have actually the ambition to become the best functioning city of the world.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the ambition of Amsterdam?
I would think that we are the city of tolerance, creativity, and inspiration.
Okay.
And that's the program of democratization. Is that
Yes,
the
that's a
English
good word. Yeah.
Okay. In base, that's what it's trying to do.
Yes.
Make people responsible for the city and work with them on this level of the
and
city.
We here in the Pakhuis, when we talk about democracy, we have lots of times we had Christian Jajoni here who has the philosophy that you should see the city as a commons. And he says that we are in a new phase of democracy. And that new phase is called experimental democracy. Everything a government now does is an experiment. It can fail. You can fail fast. It sounds a bit like Ger Baron, who was telling us, let's not build bridges or plan cities for 30 years. Let's always make a better version and just accept it like we do in technology, that we can improve while making it and continuing. Experimental democracy, can we handle that in Amsterdam? Are we ready for that?
I think we are, because we actually are in this, I think we're in an era of change, not in a change of era. We're in the other way around.
Yeah.
Yes, we're in a change of era.
Yeah.
So you need to experiment.
Yeah.
If you don't experiment, if you don't make mistakes, you can never learn. So we have to make sure we make mistakes, or else we do it the safe way.
Yeah,
we
but the
can't
funny
do
thing
this
is,
on the safe way.
if this is experimental democracy, this is just the new normal. You will keep experimenting. There is no new normal in the sense when we will have a few years of experiments and then we'll know how to do it. You will have to experiment all the time.
I would love to experiment all the time, because then we know that it only gets better.
Okay.
I think we're ready, but we do have a small problem with our political parties.
Yes, a small problem.
With the council. I don't think they are trying to get ready. So we are kind of, I think, a society and part of the municipality is ahead of what's going on in the minds and lives of the politicians in town. So we are working on that as well.
Okay. We haven't talked to the Helsinki people about their political situation. So let's see whether there are any questions on the Amsterdam presentations and talks, and then I'm going to see whether we can have everybody here and here of the. Yeah. Amsterdam people there. Yeah. Okay. Amsterdam people, can you sit over there? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Sjoukje, Sef, Ger, and Ton. And then I'm going to invite Marie Vatovara, who you already mentioned, to join me here. Director of Helsinki, Mari Sivola, Head of Master Planning of the city of Vantaa in the Metropole region. And Mikko Rusama, who's the CDO of the city of Helsinki. Welcome again. You're the only one who's from the first round here. You are new here at the table. Give them a warm welcome to the stage. So, because we've asked you to respond to what Amsterdam was telling you guys, right? And you made notes.
Yes.
You made notes.
Digital notes.
And the mic. And I'm gonna go out of this circle, you know, because then you can actually see each other. And I'm going to just stand here as an outsider of this conversation. Yes, so can I ask you to start reflecting on what you heard?
Does it work? Yes. For instance, I'm an urban planner who is planning for those 30 years, so I had some ideas, but we are the storytellers of the future, and we have to understand something about what's happening in the future. So we are turning sort of cruise line very slowly towards the right way, and we are not believing that we are doing it now for 30 years. We are doing it all the time.
Yes.
But that's why it's a rolling process of planning. But I have written here some things not about these discussions, but also earlier that we had, and I could continue a few words about this urban planning. Okay.
Yeah.
Egbert asked us about the tools, how we handle the growth in Helsinki region, and how we plan, and we have a cooperation with 14 municipalities, which is the Helsinki region, and we are making every 4th year a plan, which is not legally binding. It's more about poldering. I like your words of poldering, because we negotiate about housing, transport, and land use of this region, and we try to understand where are the zones that we are developing. And like Mari said, we have lots of room to grow in, and that's the main thing that we are doing now.
Yes, and it's a direct response to first Gerbaron. We know we have to be faster, fail faster. But it was also an explanation of what Ton said about what he thinks the differences between Helsinki. This is what you mean, right? They plan better every 4 years. They have a meeting with all the municipalities within the metropolitan region and divide tasks.
Yeah, I think it's a very right characteristic. And I think I would be a little bit tough on Ger. I think a city is not software. So there are some things which are so expensive, like infrastructure planning. If you don't do it a long time ahead, you cannot never generate the funds to invest in it. And these elements, if you do infrastructure planning, will also be very strongly guiding urban development. So I think this is, in fact, what I admire in your city, and what I think is lacking a bit in our region. But we have this great chaotic culture, which also has its benefits.
Yeah, we are building entire new neighborhoods without thinking how these people can actually come and go.
Well, we talk. We do that. Absolutely. And we think, well, maybe in time there will be a solution.
What does the CDO do?
Well, when I started in Helsinki last August, and our mayor gave me the following assignment. He told me that please deep dive to the organization and tell me what needs to be done here. That was my assignment.
Please take a deep dive.
Yes.
Are you already on the surface again?
Hardly.
No, yeah, exactly.
But anyways, I tried to, as stated earlier, our vision is to be the most functional city in the world that makes the best use of digitalization. So basically we see that digitalization help us becoming the most functional city. So
can you respond to Gerbaron on his analysis?
Yes, I have had study trip here in Amsterdam, and I've been learning from city of Amsterdam and Helsinki.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Now it's interesting because I believe it immediately. Sef Hemel was explaining to you that he needs that he has the assignment to rethink the heart of the city, the old city center. How is that going in Helsinki?
Well, I'm now the scientist, I guess, in this discussion. So,
and we don't have an old city center in
No,
Vantaa.
not.
They do in Helsinki.
Yeah, in Helsinki, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I can kind of nicely challenge the Amsterdam perspective, which is very much liked in Finland as well, but maybe the question I love on my free time the idea of breaking everything and rethinking and all that, but I wonder, based on also your research of the 80 interviews and all these new ideals, that how do you then come up with only one single solution? Like, where would it, because I love the idea that we can all rethink and imagine and rebuild and get rid of the nasty whatever we think that it is, but I wonder how is it actually then done? Which one out of the 80 interviews matters more to the mayor?
There's no one solution. There cannot be. So this is about complexity. So, and there are many goals. There should be many goals. So that's why we need a kind of narrative, which is exciting and which is very complex in itself. And it takes 20 years to unfold. And there might be a crisis in it. I think there will be a crisis in it, and it will not.
No, but the question is everybody, because you say, I don't have an agenda, I'm just listening. But she says, but who makes the selection on to what things which have been said or analyzed are you going to listen or adhere to?
Well, it's just what I say. It's many elements given by all those people. So this is pure inspiration from individuals with their own lives. And
You're doing a very good job in dialogue.
And I'm kind of now I'm again kind of making the claim that I'm the scientist.
So it's like a mosaic. You are taking the bits and pieces from different people and making beautiful mosaic.
Because I think it's serious question.
We produced in 2000, 2009 to 2011. We produced a long-term vision for the Amsterdam region. We worked almost like this. Yeah. Then we had the Free State, and it took 6 weeks, and we had 7,000 citizens in this Free State. And then it was, I would not say easy to produce this long-term vision, which is still functioning. And it contained 4 different stories. And those stories were interwoven, and then you could see, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah, we'll follow it. Jacques, what do you want to add?
Well, I think it's about making choices, or even though you hear very many different people, and together you can decide what's the best choice. And sometimes you can get a better choice if you listen and have a bigger arena of people that in the brains of these people, then always the compromise. So sometimes you need a compromise because that's what you get the deal for. But if you want the best thing, and you never know if it's the best thing, so you get into crisis and you have to solve these crises again. But you deal with that if you make choices. So it takes guts. It's not one citizen says this is what we want to do, and then there goes democracy, and that's what we're going to do. That's not what it's about. It's about making choices and making the best choices for the problem that's that you want to address.
You see problems emerging. You see new things. Yes. So I can make
broadening the perspective.
Yeah, I can make educated guesses what will gonna happen the coming 5 years, right? And for the next 10 years, I already know a lot.
I mean, I think the interesting thing is also commenting what you said. I mean, the interesting No, I haven't. I mean, the interesting thing is, I mean, I can point out probably for 25 billion in infrastructures in Amsterdam, we've built wrong. So infrastructures are expensive. And you say we need to do it, we need to plan ahead because it's exactly why we shouldn't plan ahead too far away. Exactly why we should make it adaptive, because we build buildings we actually want to demolish, but it's too expensive to demolish because we build houses and buildings to be there for 100 years. It's ridiculous in 2019. You can build a whole bunch of stuff which actually you can change, make it modular, etc. I mean, we're not in the Stone Age anymore. And there are tons of developments in Amsterdam afterwards. We'd say, well, we use it because it's too expensive to write the assets off, basically. But I mean, it's 2019.
Yes.
Come on.
Come in.
I accept that because we visited yesterday Nord area and I liked it very much. We don't have to plan everything, so we Finns, I think, do it. We plan very detailed
That's what
every
you
area.
means we allow some chaos.
Yes, and that's good. We have to allow flexibility and chaos and tolerance and everything, and we don't know the future, really, we don't. But we have to make it possible.
But is that against the kind of sustainability goals? I mean, are you after like kind of IKEA city that you can replace everything?
How sustainable is that if you want to replace everything?
Ridiculously sustainable when you do it by architecture. I mean, 100 years ago we couldn't, but nowadays we can build these thin walls but have the same isolation factor as big walls, basically. Unthinkable 50, 60 years ago. I mean, we have new technologies, we have new way of thinking. I don't say we need to change everything every day, but a bit more adaptivity. I mean, we always use the canals in Amsterdam as a great example of how adaptive we are, etc. But for 20, 25 years, it was a mess over there. 20, 25 years. I mean, put a number of money to that we didn't use the canals for what they were used. I mean, it's billions and billions and billions because we think of these things like a way that are changed very slowly.
Okay, you know, Amsterdam people are quite out there, right? That's always a bit of a risk because we're so used to public debates and discussions and dialogues.
And we love the city of Helsinki as well.
So that's always a bit of a risk. And you can do two things. You can also think, okay, but we can also I'm going to be a bit more tougher to them, and I'm going to allow you. Because, please, we asked you to respond to what they were saying, but also what we can learn from each other. And you to take this deep dive into Helsinki. What is what you can...
Actually, I was thinking while listening to stories both from Helsinki and Amsterdam, and from the Helsinki stories, there was this sentence somebody said that Finland is like an island, and like there was a picture of people standing in a snowstorm and not talking to each other. And when I think about Amsterdam, I think Amsterdam is one of the most international cities and one of the most successful cities in the world that has been able to kind of harness from the different cultural backgrounds and diversity and kind of if you look at like the smart city rankings, Amsterdam is like number one or like among top 10 cities. I think I have seen this. I mean, Helsinki is too. So I think here is the first learning. I mean, I think we need to learn disobedience and chaos from Amsterdam, because that creates kind of creativity and innovation. So the functional and organized city needs disobedience and chaos.
So coffee shop almost cheers.
And I have to say that I really love the dialogue, and I do think that asking different people, taking different perspectives and really hearing is the essential part, and still coming from the university, from the educational system, what I think really importantly happens in that process is that you really kind of educate the people to be able to rethink their lives, their cities, their neighborhoods,
Yes.
not only from the university and basic education, but just hearing and listening and rethinking and backing up your own feelings with stronger arguments. So in that way, I think it's extremely essential for any city to live. But I'm still for the synthesis. How does it go?
Yeah, a Minister of State wrote a book about democratic renewal, and he says that we need a daily democratic experience, and that is, of course, discussions and dialogues to be able to know what citizenship actually means. Yeah, nice perspectives, more disobedience, and the dialogue as a way to get Helsinki maybe a bit more into. Yeah, talking to each other at the bus.
Exactly.
Stop. Yeah.
We do it in summer. We don't do it in winter.
Oh, there's a difference between seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Discussing is always quite tricky because it depends on the subject you're talking about whether something is right or wrong.
Yes.
I think the topic that Ger was addressing when you talk about the ownership of data for the population, the algorithms, a critical government that is really looking into things that individual citizens cannot, I think it's really crucial. I think also when you look at the mistakes in infrastructure planning from the past, we've had too much concentration of power because people from a very monofunctional point of view were saying we have more cars, so we need more roads. And I think the new way of I would try to build a bridge between what Zev was telling about the storytelling and the multitude of stories and infrastructure planning. I think that you can only plan infrastructure efficiently if you deal with all kinds of different stories. And then you know it's a sustainable investment. But if you do not come to a final conclusion where to invest your money, then you will cause havoc in 20 years' time.
Yes. It doesn't need to, you have to make tough decisions.
You have to analyze all these, huh? You have to hear all these stories, and you have to dig into the potential.
Word, right?
Look at.
Okay, I was like,
You can't be scared.
profound, maybe. Yeah, that's interesting. It's already almost 10 o'clock, because that happens when you have all these perspectives, and some people are already walking away because they need a beer. Yeah.
I'll go to Munich night because I know the things that Munich.
Yeah, we also have other cities to hear as guests in WeMakeThe.City. So I was thinking we haven't discussed one little thing I really like before I'm going to ask the deputy mayor to close off this evening, the deputy mayor of Helsinki, and that is the question which I really like from Ton, the perspective on government. That there is a difference because we are not we are the capital, but not the place where the government, the national government, is seated. Right? We have The Hague for that, and he says that is making a difference. Do you agree with that? I was wondering what you think of that perspective on the difference between Helsinki and Amsterdam.
Well, I could easily think that it makes a major difference, because you then have most of the institutional powers and many of the discussions and question on how the money is divided, all that. It must be very tough. Although I'm not a great believer of any type of one single possible administrative way of doing things better, but I would still think that we have some issues way more easy. And on top of that, I have to address from our side the positive part. I still have a bit difficulties on believing the ordered manner of governing cities by the municipalities or all those. But I think in Finland, the nice thing is that we have very low hierarchies. So if a researcher have a thing to say, you are heard. And then you might be right or wrong or change your idea, but I think that helps if then you have a strong way of governing or leading the cities.
So for you, although I can, perhaps it's true, but it's not the most relevant for me if I look at well-functioning governments, because for me that means that all perspectives are able to have a seat at the table, and that is happening in Finland, in Helsinki.
Yes.
And that's why we're such a qualitative government environment.
Yeah, you could say it so. It's nicely worded.
Okay, it's fantastic that you're here, and thank you for sharing your stories on Helsinki and of course the metropolitan region around it. And thank you for
one comment.
Yeah.
About becoming the most efficient city. What is the subconscious of this idea? Can it also be the most efficient happiness city, or is it just like a functioning that the buses come on time and?
No, it was. You made the word efficient, right? They said the most functioning.
Most functional
Functioning
city.
is something else.
But is functioning also functioning for people, for
of course.
for loneliness, for
Well,
SDGs?
I think the important point to understand is that when you talk about functionality, you have to understand who the people are and what is their life situation. So functionality for families with small children is about having kindergarten close to your home, getting 6 children to doctor as quickly as possible, and that contributes to the happiness.
Okay.
But we're gonna. Yeah, there's also a social aspect in functioning, right? Thank you for that clarifying question. Thank you all. Give them a big applause. Yes, because we are honored here with the Deputy Mayor of Helsinki, Anna Sinemaki. Join me for some closing remarks. How is your visit in Amsterdam?
It's been great. It's been great and interesting. Thank you for everyone. Am I just going to say the remarks, right?
Yeah, some closing remarks.
Yeah. I think it's a difficult task because everyone who knows me understands that I could give a sort of 1 hour speech commenting and reflecting on everything that has been said, especially the question of whether we should plan for 30 years and what does it mean and why we do it and what are the aspects including. But I'm trying to take myself away from that I would be commenting on the interesting things. I'm just thanking everyone. It was really interesting. And more, I wanted to just to give few examples, not because they are perhaps more important than some others, but because they are concrete, that during the years that I have been a decision maker in Helsinki, that's already a long time, I would say that Amsterdam and what has been thought in Amsterdam or what has been built in Amsterdam or what has been the strategic goals in Amsterdam have had an effect on Helsinki.
Oh, wow.
We came here with the City Board for Culture and Libraries 2009 to see the new Central Library of Amsterdam to learn from it.
Yes.
And then 10 years later, or actually like 9 years later, from that visit, we opened our own central library that Alexis' picture showed you. We have worked together with those people who plan cycling in Amsterdam, and we have tried to listen and to learn and to get inspired and just to get practical advice how to build better cycling infrastructure. We have been listening to comments and to discussions regarding travelers and tourism in Amsterdam. I remember myself being in a conference listening to a person from Amsterdam who was explaining about the new strategy of how to spread the area where actually those who travel to Amsterdam would go, and also to hear openly it said that we do not want every tourist who would be coming, but that we want people who can behave and who do not disturb the people who really live their daily life in the city. And that has those thinkings and those things being said aloud have actually had a big effect on how we have built our strategy regarding tourism. In a way, we have tried perhaps this great thing of learning from other people's also bad things or experiences that are not only positive. In a more sort of perhaps general or philosophical manner, I think what you, Natasha, said in the beginning, that what unites perhaps capitals is that sometimes capital cities feel lonely in their country because they feel that they are a bit like suspected or disliked in other parts of the country. So I think it's a natural reason to look for allies, to look for friends, because there you can relate. And I also think that I see myself, our task as a city is to build ability to do great changes because of the climate and because we want the sense of fairness in our cities. And those are really difficult tasks. And I think that always we have something to learn from each other. And only criteria, in a way, what I would put to it, and it was like the level of dialogue question, that it's not, sometimes you can learn in a conference where people also advertise the good things that they have done, and it can be useful. But perhaps the next level of learning would be more like, really, it can be quite small things, but that you can really listen to the experience of the other city in some particular field, yes. And then it can be a big learning process. And I think with Helsinki and Amsterdam, there's chance for that. There's this nice thing that the numbers are quite close. I do like the thing that we have a housing construction target of 7,000 new flats per year, and Amsterdam has 7,500 flats, and we have for regulated rental it's 1/4. Here it's probably 1/3, but it's like there are many numbers that you can compare, and when you can compare some numbers, then it's easier to compare other numbers. And of course, I think that there are enough differences and enough similarities to be able to learn from each other.
Nice. Well, we were honored that you were one of our guest cities in WeMakeThe.City Festival, the festival where we actually have 300 events where many people of Helsinki people are actually in as experts or sharing their really in-depth stories on what they are doing. And we're honored that you're all here. Thank you. And thank you so much. And we hope all of you here have a great festival, WeMakeThe.City Festival, the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, tonight after drinks at Pension Homeland. It's already started. Friday evening we have a big open fest party at Nemo, the roof down, which you see the green roof at the nearby. And there's a party starting from 9 o'clock. And in the weekend you can have all these great open door city makers open their doors. So you're welcome to participate in that.